Solutions to the Dropout Crisis, addressing the dropout crisis one strategy at a time. Brought to you by the National Dropout Prevention Center Network with support from K-12 and Fuel Education and in partnership with Clemson Broadcast Productions. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to Solutions to the Dropout Crisis. This monthly production is brought to you by K-12 and Fuel Education, our partners in learning. And we are delighted to have you join us today for another episode of Professional Development. This is something we believe firmly in, and we are so pleased you're joining us today. I have with me in the studio Dr. Sandy Addis, who is the Executive Director of the National Dropout Prevention Center and Network. And it's good to be talking with you again. I've missed seeing you. You've been busy traveling about, but here we are back in the studio. And we have our guest with us today, which is always nice to have a guest come to see us here at Clemson.
It is, Marty. Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. We're pleased to be here on Solutions. We appreciate K-12 and Fuel Ed sponsoring it.
Absolutely.
Our guest today is Dr. Rhonda Waltman. Dr. Waltman is with Scholastic, one of the nation's leading providers of services and resources in education. Dr. Waltman has a wealth of experience. Dr. Waltman has been a teacher, a counselor, a principal, a assistant superintendent, primarily in the Mobile, Alabama area. Dr. Waltman is now with Scholastic. Scholastic is one of our innovation partners, Marty. We occasionally identify a private sector provider of a service that we find a real innovation. And learning supports that we're going to learn about today is one of those innovations. It's very consistent with the work of the National Dropout Prevention Center. It's an exciting way to look at and approach serving the needs of all students and meeting their needs. It can be barriers to education. And so we're going to learn about that from Dr. Waltman. She has been a leader in developing the model that we're going to learn about today. She has provided professional development across the country in many areas, in many topics, instruction, leadership, data analysis, as it supports instruction. She's an adjunct professor of education and leadership at the University of South Alabama. So, Marty, we're very pleased to have Dr. Waltman with us today.
Well, so am I. And we were just discussing before the program started how it's always great to learn something new every day. And here we are at the university, a place you are expected to learn. And we are in the front row of this workshop today, you and I, Sandy, and we will try to represent our viewers with questions and discussion. But what a wonderful opportunity to have you here with us today and to share you with our network and our wider audience out there. This is just great. Welcome to Solutions, Rhonda.
Thank you so much. It's just delightful to be here and to be a partner with the National Dropout Prevention Center and to be able to give some meaning today to the whole topic of learning support. So thanks so much to both of you for allowing us to join you.
And I want to point out that after the program is over, we have on this webpage resources that you can take from this first exposure to learning supports to carry on your learning with your faculty, staff, community, whoever is participating in this professional development with you. So you can take the next steps, because this is not just a one-time thing. This is something that we really feel strongly about, that professional development is an ongoing process, and we want to provide resources for that. So we also have on that webpage, by the way, Sandy, opportunities for our listeners to write in a dialogue in one of these little boxes. And I think we have, the NDPC has a Twitter account where conversations can take place about this. So we welcome the participation of all our participants out there in the world to on the online things that we offer. I'm not so big on some of them, but Sandy and I are not the experts on Twitter, but we know a lot of people are, and they're sharing ideas and having conversations that are really important. And I know, Rhonda, you all probably participate in those
yes,
as well.
Just Scholastic, we are absolutely on the forefront of that, and we realize that our teachers and our principals, those social media outlets are extremely important. So yes, we'll be happy to be a part of that with you.
Yeah, let's build a community for learning supports. Well, let's get going, shall
Let's
we?
do.
What do you think?
I think we should, Marty.
Great. Well, I want to just begin by saying we at Scholastic, we are known for many things, not the least of which is being just a major publisher of children's work. And one of our divisions is Scholastic Education. And within that division, we have just a wealth of professional development, both available for teachers, of course, and administrators and district personnel, state personnel. So the learning supports pathway we see clearly as an integrated solution for school improvement. And it helps our schools so much to expand that. And so I'd like to just at the outset say that this is about improving schools so we improve outcomes for students. And that's the premise of this work. So as you'll see in our first slide, the case for learning supports, and I want to give absolute credit to Drs. Edelman and Taylor from UCLA. They, for over 40 years, have provided the theory and the background for this approach to learning and this approach to working with students. So in our first slide you'll see, and this is Edelman and Taylor's theory that's been around for a number of years, and we at Scholastic have had the privilege of doing action research with them in all over the country, and it is so important to the very premise and the credo of Scholastic that it is one of our offerings now in professional learning. So if you'll see on the next slide, this is Edelman and Taylor's basic theory or the case for learning supports. And if you'll look with us to the right, learning, the reason we have school is for students to learn. Mm-hmm. And that model has worked well using instruction as the way that we improve outcomes for students, and that's how students learn. And that works for students, as you'll see to the left in the range of learners. That model works pretty well for students who come, as we say, pencils sharpened and ready to go, motivated, engaged, and ready to go. In Edelman and Taylor's work, when they've surveyed teachers, they have heard everything from 5% of the students are coming motivated, ready, and able to learn to 85% of the students are coming motivated and ready to learn. We've seen the same thing, and we see that vary. It is amazing the variance that you see. What we know for sure, and as Edelman and Taylor's theory says, is we have a range of learners. These students show up every day. We have students who have experienced minor challenges. We've had students who have experienced major challenges. And there's both of those, both the minor and the major. This work, we call that barriers to instruction. Certainly it's barriers to learning for kids, but for our teachers in our schools, it is a barrier to instructing students. And teachers will say, I've planned great lessons, I have everything ready, but these students I'm not getting through to them. And years ago, the Carnegie Task Force on Education really addressed this issue. And I would say, I'm not even sure how old that quote is, but I know it is at least 15 years old. And they said school systems are not responsible for meeting the need of every student. But when the need directly affects learning, we rise up and meet the challenge. And that is what we see so clearly among teachers and among the support staff and the leadership in schools.
And what I see interesting on that chart is the yellow and the red.
Yes.
Because the red, there might be a major crisis. I remember teaching, I had a young man whose mother died.
Absolutely.
That's a huge crisis. Or parents are getting divorced. Mm-hmm. Some incident, issue is happening. To me, the challenge probably would be the minor challenges that the student has that may not even know that they have a minor challenge. And that group of students must be hard to identify, hard to move into this green space.
Right.
And maybe we'll be learning more about that today, but I think that needs to be mentioned, that it isn't always so obvious.
No, it's not.
What students are experiencing, the minor challenges.
Correct. They're pretty good. Students are pretty good at hiding some of that sometimes. Yeah. Or it manifests, it comes out in different ways, but you're right. That group, we'll talk about that group. They are a very important group. So Edelman and Taylor's said, yes, we agree with this task force. The litmus test is learning. If there is a barrier that students have and it is impacting learning, then we do rise up. And our districts and schools around the country do that all the time. And as you'll see on the next slide, they said we have to do something. The goal of this work is to, as the diagram shows, is we have to get around those barriers. We may not can correct or fix every barrier for students, but we in schools have to find a way to get around those so that students can benefit and have the outcomes we want for them in school. And that's called learning supports. In our world, we believe that learning supports gives all students the opportunity to benefit from learning. They are sitting in the same classrooms with students who may not have as many barriers. We want them to have those same opportunities. And at its very core, this work is about equity, making sure all students have what they need to learn. And as we see in the next slide, Paul Revell from Harvard has so wonderfully stated, instruction alone is not a powerful enough intervention to help all students succeed. And that's our mantra. Yes, we have schools because students need to learn and teachers need to teach. We see our job as supporting teachers and not having teachers feel like they alone have to correct these barriers. So love that quote. It is, I had a principal say and a superintendent say at different times, if instruction could have fixed it, we would have the magic potion, wouldn't we? If that could fix and address all the interventions, it can. And our teachers need our support and the support that our districts and schools provide. So this isn't, I think you'll find a lot of this is common sense. It's not always common practice. So our job is to build the capacity of schools and support staffs to make that happen for our students.
Rhonda, you mentioned barriers. You seem to be saying that we've got to find a way to help these students get over, around, or through these barriers. What do you mean by barriers?
So we'll take the next slide and it will show you in the research through the years, Edelman and Taylor, as well as all the action research we have done, and oh my gosh, probably 80, 90 schools around and districts around the country. Here's what we found. Barriers that students have range from everything from environmental to individual barriers. And it's so interesting when we work with our schools and districts, and we don't show this list first. We allow them to share with us, well, what are the barriers that your kids are having? What are your families facing? Families are such a critical part of this. So we begin to have them, think and brainstorm those barriers. So as we write them, on the charts and we're talking about them, it becomes crystal clear to them, oh my goodness, yes, we have our students and families face environmental issues. There are many things that go on that could fit under that category. Our families face many issues. More and more of our families are facing issues. We have so many barriers that our students face that are family related. And we see our job as families, they're the first teachers of our students. We want everything we do with families to link to learning so that they become just our partners and we become their partners. Sometimes, unfortunately, some of the barriers that students face are actually at school. Enrollment and attendance, as we'll talk about today, are two of those major areas. Sometimes, as we all know, students that have encounters and negative encounters with their friends, if they're being bullied, if they're new at the school, if the school lacks the resources they need to provide for all the needs of students. We've already said these needs are growing. And finally, and as you can see, only 1/4 of the barriers that we've seen are individual to the student. And that's usually a big aha for our teachers and our leaders in schools. Oh my goodness, 3/4 of what students face that are barriers are outside of them. So that Carnegie Task Force quote just resonates in our ears because we have to assist with these things for schools to be able to provide for the students' needs and to be able to allow our teachers to really teach, because that's what they go to school to do, is to teach our students. So,
well, I can see at a workshop like this that you mentioned conducting that the discussions would lend, not under your supervision, but in another thing, what is the need in our school? And they would come up with lists like this, and then they would say, well, perhaps the biggest problem we have is, gags. This is our biggest problem. And they zero in on that to provide these students with a place for belonging and meet all the needs of students, feeling like they will really chip away at this dropout issue and this school engagement issue by targeting one thing. But I can see that every community, every school can look at this kind of list that they would create themselves and say, my goodness, we're in every category, and if we hit one, we're not going to solve the problem. And this systemic approach that I think you're about to describe for us is going to make sure that no one falls through the cracks, because not everybody is in a gang. They may have the issue in their family, the family issues, and it may not be anything to do with the gangs.
Rhonda, you pointed out that approximately a fourth of these factors are in the individual. Another thought I'm having is that about a fourth are in the schoolhouse.
Yes, sir.
And so
Yes,
what
you're
this
right.
says to me is, as school people, we can't just, if we're going to get our outcomes that we are expected to achieve, we can't just focus inside the schoolhouse.
No, sir.
We've got to broaden our perspective and look at the factors outside the schoolhouse. This is very consistent with the research of the National Dropout Prevention Center in terms of risk factors.
Yes, sir.
And we find the same thing is we've got to get outside the schoolhouse.
We do, and Sandy, as you and Marty both know, for those of us who have been in this business a long time, we take it to heart in schools. We believe it's our mission to make sure our students succeed. Yeah. I think we're getting better at sort of opening the schoolhouse door, if you will, and say, community, we need you. We can't do this without you. This is a community, as you said, Marty, this is a community issue. And families, we don't want to talk at you. We want to arm in arm with you, help your family, which in turn also helps your children. So I would say you're absolutely right. This activity, however, as you said, Marty, in schools is eye-opening. I would say the issue of poverty comes up a lot. And our biggest belief about that is just because someone lives at or below a particular number, a particular designation, that does not mean their families don't want them to succeed. It is, in fact, most times the opposite. But when a family has chronic or either situational poverty, we need to be there to get them the outside resources that they need, because when you help the family, you are in turn helping the child. And ultimately, we know how important that bond is. So it's a fascinating activity, and I encourage all of our listeners and readers, and please do this for yourself. It's very eye-opening. And then in the next slide, you'll see at Scholastic, we have lots of partnerships, and you mentioned our great partnership with you. We have a partnership with the Council of Chief State School Officers. Those are our commissioners and secretaries of education in our states. We sponsor the Teacher of the Year with CCSSO, which is just a wonderful thing. So we hear straight from teachers what's happening. But in 2016, we took that even further. We did a survey of about 4,000 teachers and principals around the country. One of our questions that was a must to ask was, well, what are the barriers we're seeing to equity? And if you look at this one, I just chose to put one, and that'll be one of the resources available is the complete report. But when we ask principals, well, what are you seeing in your schools? Look at exactly what we just talked about on the barriers page is exactly what our principals are telling us. 95% family and personal crisis are some of the barriers, and that's impacting equity. We see mental health, poverty, hunger, health care, temporary housing, English language learning support. So they're all there, and then we ask, which one of those are increasing? And mental health services, family personal crisis, more are living in poverty. So you can see clearly, yes, principals are saying, yes, these issues, these barriers exist, and oh, by the way, they are increasing. So more and more, going back to that Carnegie Task Force, the litmus test is, are these impacting learning? And our principals and our teachers, hands down, are saying, yes, they are. So we have a responsibility. We as educators, and every one of us, our communities have a responsibility to address them. So a little discussion about barriers, and as you can see, the data is supporting that it is time. It's both, I would say, to conclude the barriers conversation, it's both a moral imperative that we do this, that we work toward equity for all students, because some of our students have barriers that are getting in the way of learning. But it's also a fiscal imperative, as we will see as we begin to discuss what schools, so we have barriers, what do schools do about those barriers? And we do many things. So in our next slide, I want to take us back to that Edelman and Taylor's learning supports framework, and making a case for learning supports as a primary area of work for schools. So we'll start with, well, what are learning supports? And as you see there, we always say it's anything and everything we do to ensure success for our students. There are programs we put in place in schools. There are good strategies that our teachers and leaders come with. All of those are put in place to improve the physical, social, intellectual, and emotional development of students. And as we know, there's a big push. We're sort of rounding back to social emotional learning in our schools. That's such a large part of what we are doing now. And truly, that is key to the entire curriculum for learning supports. And learning supports take place both in the classroom and school-wide, and actually community-wide, with the goal of re-engaging disconnected youth. I would love to say here, what I think I liked most of all about, what appealed to me most as an assistant superintendent, was this curriculum, if you will, for learning supports, just like we have curriculum for instruction. It gave a sense of order to what we were trying to do. And I loved it because it gave us, and it still provides, a curriculum, a way of talking about the many supports that we have in school. And I would say that green piece of the pie, first and foremost, what happens in our classrooms matter most. So teachers every day provide those supports. The moving clockwise, student and family interventions. We have been doing case management in schools for many years. We know those students, and sometimes even the families who struggle most to get their students to school. We know the families that will need the help when it comes time for school supplies, or helping them get assistance that they need. And I would say, for the most part, in a traditional school, we have always provided supports in the classroom, and we've provided supports, to your point, Marty, for that deep end student that's having problems. What this model does, and what we help our schools do, is map what are you doing in these other 4 areas that can make that plan that you have much more robust. So we talk about all the normal transitions that students have from home to pre-K, and the big pre-K push we have around the country. I'm so glad for that. We address the grade level transitions. We address when you leave school, to our point about the connections to dropouts. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? So there are many transitions in a child's life. Mobility, homelessness, all of those issues, that's a transition for students. Crisis intervention, we know in our country the focus we have had in that area. Community collaboration, we said earlier, we have to open our school door. We need the help of our community. So we help them map, what are you doing and what can we help you do to bring in your community? And last but not least, family engagement. And for Scholastic, we started with classroom-based supports, of course. The hallmark is
Yes.
our literacy work in classrooms. And we chose family engagement as our second deep dive, if you will, into these areas. So in addition to talking about learning supports as a school improvement model, we also provide deep end assistance in those two areas.
You know, Rhonda, it looks like as you go further around the wheel, we get further away from our comfort zone, and we also get into areas that maybe are a little more challenging to address.
Yes, they are. That's such a great observation, and it's
Gets
true.
harder.
It does get harder because we're comfortable. Teachers, while it may be difficult, they're comfortable in their classroom, and our schools help our teachers. Part of this work is to get those barriers that our students are facing outside, help carry that load with and for our teachers.
Well, it looks like, because of this model, that the schools really need to build bridges to the community, and there's so many different, community collaboration sounds like, oh, we'll do some little project together. No. And I think at the outset of the show, I would, welcome everybody. I throw in community because I feel like the community should be part of it, but I think we're making a very strong case today with this systemic model, how teachers and schools cannot successfully bear the burden alone, the challenge alone, shall we say, that these bridges need to be built, and everybody around the table from these different worlds can help refine these things. And I think it's exciting what's coming next, because my favorite thing is coming next. I'm giving away the story.
Yes,
Oh,
she's giving away the story.
Yeah.
So in Edelman Taylor's work, the other thing to point out, I would say, about this particular piece is in school districts where you are providing not only programs but personnel in each of these areas. We one of our favorite activities is let's map who is serving your schools in these areas. And as an assistant superintendent, I can tell you I had connections in all of these areas. Of course, my instruction counterpart took care of most of that classroom base, but that's a lot of, if you think about the personnel and the programs, and helping schools not only figure out what you need, first figure out what you have. What is from a strengths-based view, what do you already have? Who are those people in your community that you have connected with? And in support of our community partners, so many times we don't know what to tell our community partners we need them to do. We can say, the Waltman family may need something, but what are the big issues that you're having that they can help you with systemically? And after many years of action research around this theory across the country, there are communities that have taken this head on, and they have helped the schools, and the schools have helped the community address those problems. So let's move on to Marty's favorite slide. And let me say as a disclaimer, in no way do we expect you to be able to read each of our graphics to the left. However, as we talk about what schools do, our schools do many supports every day. We've invested dollars, which is both programs and personnel. And I had a principal say not too long ago, yes, and I feel like all of those things are coming at me versus to help. This is probably the most favorite slide of our superintendents. It is at this point when a superintendent looks at this and goes, okay, I'm in, because I feel like we have not drawn that circle around all of these supports that we are providing. And most often, many of the supports are provided by the district, and then it cascades out to the schools. So one of our first activities is helping our schools always with our district personnel hand in hand. We identify what are the many supports that you have in school. And then, if you will, we help them map those to those 6 practice areas. One of the other connections back, Marty, to your statement early on about intervening early and catching those students in the middle, if you will, we also help them take all of the supports that they have, and we make a decision. who is receiving that service right now? Is it something you're doing for just a few students? Are you seeing more and more students need this service? If that's true, perhaps it's something we should be doing from a prevention mode. And that's the all. We call it all some few. That is prevention, early intervention, and then that deep in one-on-one system of care. That's a public health model. That's that good multi-tiered systems of support. You got it.
That one.
And you know, that model's been around for many years. In schools, two words that phrases that you will hear schools say that you know they're heading in the right direction is multi-tiered systems of support and response to intervention. And what we try to do is we take the best of multi-tiered systems of support and RTI, if you will, and we help our schools make that a much a more robust model, because we try to we work with them to map it in all 6 of those practice areas that we just saw, as well as who is receiving or who should be receiving those services.
Does it go without saying, and I represent the audience here, not the brilliant administrator to my right here, and his audience, that this is, when we say systemic, we mean district. We don't mean school. Could you address that? Because there might be someone in a school who says, this would be great for a school, but I'm in this humongous school district, which there are many. We live right down the road from one, Greenville, South Carolina. It's a huge school district. How can this wonderful idea that I'm hearing now on solutions go right up to become district-wide? Because we could do it in our school, but we can't without, or can they? That's my question.
So the beauty, yes, and I'll say why.
Okay.
This is a framework for work. It's a framework for doing the work you're already doing. It's not, it's, as I say, sometimes to my colleagues' chagrin at Scholastic, we can't put this in a pretty little box and ship it to you.
Right.
This is capacity building. This is helping you do what you have to do anyway in a more organized and systemic way. To your point, and I think I've emphasized, we want so much for this to be first a district initiative. That is not to say you can't go straight to schools, because I have several schools in New York City, and we are starting with them because their district superintendents say, you know what, I need 2 places that I can show my other schools how this works, that it is not a program in a box. What I love about this framework is district or school may begin organically many times. Rural, urban, suburban, no matter the school, this process works for you. And in all these many years of work, I can say this is I feel like one of, while it is not new, and Edelman and Taylor have been telling us this for many years, timing is everything. And I think now, both from a fiscal and a moral perspective, we see around the country people are ready and are willing to take a strong look at themselves, actually. So to answer your question, we see success both ways. We see success when a superintendent or chief academic officer or one of those people in leadership positions say, it is time for us to really map and understand what we're doing. The other reason that is important, or another reason that is important, is because we want our schools and districts to work around goals, not roles. So it's a little bit less around my positioning is this. I am in charge of, I'll take one of these examples, I am in charge of partnering with the juvenile courts, and that's what I do. That's my job. But I may not be talking to someone else who has a connection to students in crisis. So if you focus on the goal, which we say are looking at it through the lens of those 6 areas, not my particular role either in a district or in a school. It's much more collaborative. That's one of the first things we teach. So yes, Marty, you got your favorite slide up there, and I see superintendents often go, oh my goodness, you are drawing a circle around. All those things that I simply cannot put my finger on what we do, because they're many times marginalized and fragmented.
Yes.
So this helps a lot. And I may add too, early on in the research, districts would say yes, and that represents about 25% of our budget. That's why it's a fiscal imperative. I hear superintendents now say, oh no ma'am, it's more like 40% of our budget is being spent on support services or people in support positions. So as we see those barriers and needs increasing, our schools are trying so hard to keep up with the demand, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's more and more is being spent in these support areas, which is all the reason why we have to be much more deliberate and impactful with those supports.
You know, Rhonda, as I'm sitting here as a school board member thinking, okay, resource allocation. Traditionally, we've got most of our personnel in the classroom.
Absolutely.
We've got a few people we've got counselors going around the wheel, and when you get up to the community engagement and the family engagement, we may have one person at the district office or a half person assigned to that.
Exactly right.
And so we also are looking at traditional resource allocation versus maybe having to look at a new concept of allocating people and dollars.
Absolutely. In talking to school board members and talking to superintendents, even in working with community partners, you know, they too have budgets and limitations. So the more we can arm in arm figure out what our barriers are for our students, what supports we have in place, what is it maybe we need to stop doing so we can start more strategically working with those partners. So absolutely. It is one of the best ways, I think, to wrap your arms around the many services that we provide in schools. And I would say instruction has been doing that for years. Instruction staff, they map, they do curriculum mapping, but for us to do that in our support arena and be able to share with them how we can help them with the students that are, and intervene earlier, to your point, Marty, how we can do that. So again, probably the most famous slide we use, and you nailed it, Marty, it's very important.
Well, it was the aha moment, and I think that's credit is
right,
to
and
you.
it's, you know, so this piece is about organizing your resources. The next slide, when we work through this, when we say when we get our house in order, so we get our learning supports house in order. We know what we have, we know what programs maybe aren't getting the impact we want, and we need to be strategic and, as a colleague says, strategically abandon some of the things we've been doing for 10 years that are not getting the impact that our students need. So organizing is first. Then in a typical school improvement model, in schools, and those of us who have worked many years in schools, we know it's instruction and management. How are we going to manage the school? How are we going to make sure that we are providing the curriculum that students need so they're prepared for life? And sometimes, even if we've gotten our house in order in learning supports, it's not at the table. But as the next slide will show you, this is about integrating learning supports with instruction and management. And if you will, that star in the middle, that's our star principal, that's our star superintendent, who has responsibilities to make sure all of that is working. That is the model. That's why we say this pathway for learning supports, it's an integrated school improvement model. And as we know, the work is in the details of that. But that is our goal. And when we work with our schools, we do a lot of critical assessments with them. Who are the people that you have in all three of these components? What are all those committees? Those of us who have spent many years in schools, how many committees have we served on? Yeah. So we work really hard with our schools to focus on the goals of instruction, the goals of management, and the goals of learning supports. And no matter your role, you come together in a different way. You braid those funds together too. If you want a strong family engagement program, all of a sudden we put all the people who have responsibilities for family engagement, including our communities, at the table.
Right.
And that makes a huge difference. The next slide too, this is part of our teaching and part of our delivery of this model to our schools. If we say the goal is student learning, then our personnel and instruction, they have responsibilities for that, and we go there first because, as we said, what happens in the classroom and with instruction matters most. That team, that instruction team, has responsibilities for monitoring the data for our students, getting to that root cause of why students are underperforming, and then work with the learning supports team to provide the supports. Now, as a former math teacher, I will say, I love this too because it's a Venn diagram. And as we know in Venn diagrams, they cross each other. And there's a reason for that, because in this collaborative school improvement model, we have representatives from the learning supports team who would be at the instruction meeting. And conversely, when we are having a learning supports committee meeting, say a work group around transitions, we want to be sure that we have personnel that represent instruction and management there.
And I'm glad to see that learning supports people are at the table with instruction, because I was thinking this whole thing about analyzing why, a root cause of underperformance, when we got back to that green, red, yellow thing, the yellow people there were the ones that had minor things going on that were not so easily detectable, so teachers are not detecting it. But I'm assuming or hoping that you're going to tell me that the learning supports team will have people who can help teachers be aware of what might be a symptom of something and to probe deeper. That seems to me that would be really helpful for this whole model, to have somebody help teachers who see this child every day and just see he's underperforming. Oh, he's not doing his homework. Oh, he's not this. Oh, he's disorganized. She is having this issue or that. So is that part of their role?
It is essential to their role.
Yeah.
I would say at the very heart of this work is being the support for the teacher, so the teacher can teach and the students can learn. The probably sometimes the most applause we get is from teachers. They go, finally, I feel like I'm a new teacher at this school. I don't even know who to turn to if I know this is a family situation. Who in my school is that key person? So imagine if, using this model, how you meet and what you talk about at those meetings, our goals, not roles, we focus on those 6 areas, and also how you communicate about it. Because we need our teachers, they need our assistance, they need a roadmap. If they know, I'm sensing something's changing in this family, Sandy's family's been here a long time, but something's going on, we want to have the personnel and if needed, the practices in place that we can address that early on. To your point about our range of learners. You know, Sandy may have been a great student, but all of a sudden something's happening. So I say to teachers, look, we want the system where you raise your hand and say there's a problem. We have something in place to assist, not when the student has fallen through the cracks and failed, but before, intervene earlier. So yes. So imagine, we've looked at our data, we looked at that high stakes data that we have. Our learning supports team's job is to take that information that they have co-owned with instruction. Here, what we see are some of the root causes. We'll do a great example in a minute of that a high school did. And let's see what we can do to address that issue, not just what the teacher can do, but what can all areas do. And of course, that leadership, that management piece that our principals or superintendents, if you will, represents. Then if we know what we need, then that's how that team, the management team, can do the human, fiscal, operational. They can deploy the funds and the people to the right place. So just a very cohesive model. So we both help our schools organize and our districts organize their supports and integrate it. This integration with instruction and management is absolutely essential to the success. And that is what makes it a system, I would add also. And the next slide is just a little it's our mantra. It's what we very essential piece that we work with our schools on. After you organize how you work in those three components, it's time to find out why we have the issues we do. Why do we have a group of students who are underperforming? And that root cause analysis, and our educators and participants who are a part of this webinar virtually with us, you know what we mean. We cannot stop it. Well, he's not good at math. Is that really the reason we have, a fourth of our students not doing well, or she's not good at that? It's that root cause. And we always say, you better do the root cause 3 to 4 times. You got to peel back till you get to the real reason. And that's how it's so connected to our dropout prevention, because it's the peeling back. It's finding the root causes where we get to the dropouts, and using those 6 areas to help solve that school-wide issue, right?
Rhonda, obviously Scholastic brings us this concept, and it's opened my eyes to and made me realize several things as a former counselor and a school administrator and now working in dropout prevention. Scholastic provides this. How has Scholastic helped some schools use this? Give us some examples.
Oh, listen, this has been, I would say, just the mission of Scholastic Education for the last several years, working hand in hand with Drs. Edelman and Taylor, and doing that action research around the country. Let's look at some data.
Yes.
I believe that is next, and I want to share. We are today in Clemson, South Carolina, and I want to share some wonderful data from Sumter County, South Carolina. They are one of our learning supports districts, and I want to especially highlight Crestwood High School. Crestwood, the principal at Crestwood went through some changes and had some administrative turnover through the years, but at the point the current, I believe to this day, the still current principal came. We were beginning our learning supports work in Sumter, and as a principal, that leadership team at that school bought in. The district bought in. We along the way, as we work with our schools, we say let's look at some non-academic indicators. We've talked about your standardized test scores, your benchmark tests, but let's look at your attendance and discipline. Well, what's so interesting about Crestwood is they chose to work on attendance.
Okay.
But I'm choosing to show you the discipline slide because, yes, their attendance plan, honoring kids and recognizing kids who come every day, finding that group that are just beginning to miss too many days, getting to them, addressing the deep end kids. Look what happened to discipline along the way. It was the biggest aha in the world. They said, oh my goodness, we didn't even really focus on discipline. We were focused on attendance. That was the laser focus. But guess what? When we re-engaged students in learning, those disconnected students, when we got them in school, they knew they had support at school, not only from the staff, but from other students, because students' voice was really big at Crestwood. Look what happened to that discipline. So we're just so proud of them, and I think it's an indicator of what can happen when you focus like a laser on the root cause.
So they focused learning supports on attendance, which also had a collateral impact on other indicators.
It did, but I remember I was doing a call with them with their lead. Dr. Haggerty was the lead at the time at the district, and the principal, and they said, Rhonda, we just have to tell you. It was their aha, and it was early in the school year. It was early in the school, about this time of the year. They're like, oh my gosh, we're seeing a definite decrease. They did what we talked about earlier. South Carolina emphasizes multi-tiered systems of support. That the school, Sumter said, you're right, we're using multi-tiered systems of support. We've just expanded it to all 6 of our areas of learning support. So proud of them. So now I want to go across the country to the other coast. And if you will look at the next slide, look what happened in San Juan Unified School District. I'm highlighting here 2 particular schools, a middle school and the learning support team focus was attendance. Year one, and by the way, before anyone is astonished, the number of periods of absence, that is what they check, not the percentage, not the average daily attendance, or not, because things get masked in average daily attendance. No, how many days or how many periods in a day, or whatever, how you want to count the number of periods absent from one year to the next. So already seeing a huge drop from 42,000 periods missed to 36,000. That is improvement, and that happened in a very short period of time. Another example from San Juan, a K-8 school, they focused on suspensions in particular. I mean, dropped it, in half. So very, very impactful data. If the students are there more, if they're in class and they're not, in trouble or waiting in the office, or even in-school suspension, when you see data like that, we're just thrilled.
And Rhonda, our research indicates very clearly at the National Dropout Prevention Center that better attendance and better behavior produces higher graduation rates.
There you go. And we have an example coming up shortly for that, Sandy. On the next slide, I'd like to highlight Alabama for a minute. Alabama was our first state to adopt learning supports as a statewide initiative.
I know. Just clarify, when you say statewide initiative, isn't it a mandatory or
no?
recommended?
It was wonderful. We started in 2013-14. Our state superintendent at the time, Dr. Bice, learned about the work of learning supports. I'd lived in their state. I knew him, and at the time was helping with the research for Scholastic for the work. And Dr. Bice said, you know what? Let's start with, on a voluntary basis, to see of our 100 plus districts who would like to join the first cohort of schools and districts to let's implement learning supports in their districts. So in that first year, we had 10 districts from every size that you can imagine in Alabama. We worked, of those 10 districts, those superintendents could choose one feeder pattern, all their feeder patterns that included, elementary, middle, high. So we ended up with about 78 schools in 10 districts. In less than 6 months of focus. So it took us, we got going that year, and about this time of the year, about November, December, we really started focusing on attendance. And he asked us to. He said, let's really look at absences, because it was abominable, the number of absences. So what we found, and was absolutely, the Public Affairs Research Council named it as one of the best things we've done in Alabama, because look at what happened. The average savings in the pilot schools and districts that we had was 25%. To be able to decrease the number of absences in a school by 25%, in a district by 25%, is phenomenal. And if you look, and this is truly what happened, we had schools that had, if you count the number of days, obviously by the number of students they have, from 90,000 look down to 70,000. That's humongous. We had small districts, large districts. The total number of absences avoided, 110,000 days.
Yeah, people may not be able to see the small print here, which I can now. And the orange or the yellow gold is 2013, and the next one is the next year.
The very next
year.
And
having looked back at your other graphs where it was over a 5-year period, this drop is totally remarkable.
It was. It absolutely
for
was.
1 year. For 1 year.
And the next year, so imagine this was 10 districts. The next year we added 30 districts. We still saw improvement. Of course, our group that we were studying was much larger, but it has been very eye-opening. And again, non-academic indicators. Our districts and states have to do that under our ESSA plan. They have to have non-academic indicators. We collect this data. So our schools say, I've always been collecting this data, but it's what I do about it that has changed. I'm looking for those students who may not be the ones missing the most days today, but if I don't keep an eye on your favorite, Marty, the ones in the center that are having some minor challenges. So that's what we see so clearly.
And
it's
it seems
beautiful.
to me that each successive year, the communities, the schools, the teachers, the administrators are going to make more improvements, do better at this whole infrastructure that they're developing, community school-wide, that it's going to continue to improve. And this is just after 1 year. I'm just blown away by that.
It is. And Alabama continues this to this day. We, Scholastic partnered with the state of Alabama for a 5-year commitment. And we're actually in the midst of this year 5, and we're already hearing people say, please don't, we have to keep this going. But here's the deal. We want to build capacity
Yes.
in our teachers and our principals and our district leaders so they can sustain the work.
Well, they're the pros now.
Oh my
5
goodness,
years
they
into
know.
it,
Listen,
yeah.
our districts in Alabama, our districts, well, I can't tell you how many times we have used our Sumter team, San Juan, Bloomington, Minnesota. I could go on and on. It's wonderful. We have all around the country. We're seeing this capacity building is it's working, and that's what we want more than anything. And you talk about happy teachers. If students are there, our teachers can teach them.
That's right.
So that's critical. Now, I would like in the next slide, I want to focus on one school, Montevallo High School in Shelby County, Alabama. And I want to tell you a little story first before we look deeply into this. So Montevallo was, Shelby County was on board almost immediately with this, just in a very large district. And Montevallo High School, they adopted this model just hook, line, and sinker. They were so excited about it. So in that, excuse me, in one of those first years, we by the way, this is longitudinal data. We weren't even there in 10 and 11, but I want to show you what has happened with them. And I want to especially emphasize the work that the freshman teachers did. We looked at that data and to our dropout focus here. There were always good things going on there, but our freshman teachers studied the year before who were those children who were undercredited at the end of the year. And we know the choke, I call it that choke point that 9th grade is for a dropout. Who are these kids? Let me name them. Is it Rhonda, Marty, Sandy? Who are these students? And in that root cause, they kept peeling it back, and they said, wait a minute, there's a similarity among these students.
Yeah.
The majority of them who are undercredited to move to 10th grade are not involved with things at school. They're not in the band. They're not athletic. They're not in the art club. They're simply not engaged in at least one extracurricular. So what was their goal for the next year? Every 8th grader coming to Montevallo High School, the mantra was, and it started at orientation with the parents when they came to pick up their schedule. They had the most wonderful, I forgot what they called it, but in my mind it was like speed dating. They had booths set up in the gym. They had every club. They expanded their clubs and activities to make sure that students could connect with at least one activity. And lo and behold, look what happened. That graduation rate started increasing, even as the enrollment pretty much stayed the same. And in our next slide, we're just so proud of them. We want to show you some more of their data. Look at out-of-school suspensions, alternative school placement, even in-school suspension decreased. So that means not only did we did they decrease the number of students who were being sent home, they decreased the number of students who even had to go to in-school suspension. And the last one there is it's student incident reporting. That's something that Alabama in particular uses. But again, you can see even the number of incidents of discipline issues has decreased.
Rhonda, I'm going to see if we can flip between these two slides, because looking at this one, you notice that there's a fairly quick, once they implemented in 2013-14, they were probably into full implementation. You saw some pretty significant quick drops in the earlier leading indicators.
Correct.
But if we could go back to the previous slide for a moment, with the graduation rates, you'll know that the graduation rates took a little longer.
That's correct.
Now, that illustrates the point that graduation rates are a lagging indicator.
Yes, they are.
If the primary grade for dropping out is 9th and 10th grade, then it doesn't show up in the graduation rate until that cohort reaches the 12th grade.
That is correct.
So a lot of times we'll have school systems say to us, what can you do to improve my graduation rate next year? Not much. What can you do to improve my graduation rate 3 or 4 years out? A lot.
A lot.
And this is a good example of that because you had a quick change in leading indicators or early indicators. You had a much slower change in the 4-year-old indicator.
That's
but,
correct.
It's a great illustration.
And prevention is the key.
Yeah. So how did this happen? What were the, besides the, I love the whole idea of the entry into 9th grade, inviting the 8th graders. This is what we do here. Instead of like, if you're a junior and you're saying you need to get involved, well, you already have set a pattern of not being involved.
That is correct.
So that was a wonderful solution to an identified problem. But I think the next slide shows us.
Oh, the next slide is just wonderful. And
Yes.
I will start by saying, please don't, this will be available. You can do anything you
all
want with
the
it.
resources
All the resources
will be
available
on our website.
But
yes.
I want to just say at the outset, they found the problem. They did that good root cause.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm approximating this. We've got 50 students who are, that were not ready for 10th grade, and we have to both intervene for them and prevent it in the future. So to your point about let's get those 8th graders in there.
Mm-hmm.
But this school used the model so well. When they started to build the strategies, and the instruction team quickly found those kids who were not ready for 10th grade. But they said, what do we need to put in place, or what do we have in place in all 6 of those areas of learning supports? So what changes in the classroom? We still probably have to have some student and family intervention. We are going to have some times that we need to do that for all kids or a few kids. But what is it about transitioning students from 8th to 9th that is making that we need to focus on? Are there crisis points here we need to look at? Yes, let's tap into our community. We do have students in crisis sometimes. What can we ask our community to collaborate with us on around our goal of freshman engagement and success? And finally, what is it we have to do a little differently with our families to emphasize and to get their buy-in on this?
Yeah.
Let your children be in the clubs and the activities, right? So we refer to this slide as working the spokes. We take all 6 areas of learning supports and we build a comprehensive plan for this is how to address the issue that they found of freshman engagement and success. And kudos to the school. They've had a change in principals. Guess what? The work continues.
Oh, the work must continue.
It is.
I love to see this, and we do have to wrap up, sadly, but how with such a great solutions, it's like, okay, our job is done. We got this great idea. To see how it impacts in these other worlds and to keep it strengthened and providing support where you may not know you need it. If there's a crisis, the student engagement piece may be impacted. And how can we deal with that part too? Everybody's around that table.
That's right.
That's so great.
And
That's
it's
a
the
nice table
goal
like
and
this.
not the
Yeah.
role, right?
That's right.
So I'm just so proud, and
I think so.
Again, thank you for letting me join you today on this beautiful day and to share this model.
So Rhonda, if I'm a principal, I'm a superintendent. I've seen this broadcast, and you got my attention. I want the kind of results that you showed us in those examples. Of course, we've got the resources on our website. We've got how to contact you, how to do this.
Yes.
Of course, there's more to it than just understanding the concept. We've got to talk about some professional development. We've got to talk about some planning
Correct.
sessions with our staff. Could you briefly tell us what am I looking at as a superintendent? What am I committing my people to? Some
Okay.
time and some professional development?
Yes, sir. The key to this is capacity building of your staffs. But as you have seen, it's pretty organic because we start with your data, we start with what your barriers are, and the next slide will show you we use a systemic approach. And that's why we call it the Learning Supports Pathway, because first we'll work with you on understanding what it is. It's what is the imperative around this work. And you know from having seen this, we work on assessment. We are all about, let's see what you're doing now. Let's see what you can stop doing, what you need to start doing. Let's map your resources. Let's take data that you have at your fingertips right now and see what changes we can get some impact pretty quickly. We help you expand your school improvement plan. Every school has a school improvement plan. This is about expanding it and making it much more robust. A key to this work is the coaching that goes along, hand in hand with you, on site with you, helping you get some progress monitoring, looking at those rubrics. Are we making the impact and having the impact we want? And how do we sustain it? So we also, by the way, offer plenty of specialized training. If you want to focus on climate, you want to focus on discipline, you want to focus on principal leadership. We have many times what comes out of this is our big pain point is motivation of students. So we're happy to provide some professional development around those topics too. But our goal is always in building capacity through strong professional learning and then sustainability. We want to be able to walk away and know this is the way you now do your work. And to hear administrators say, I can't even remember how I used to do it. I'm so used to working this way in those three components, including learning supports. I can't remember how I used to do it. That's the biggest compliment of all. So we have evidence that it works, but it is so near and dear to the mission and the credo of Scholastic. We're happy to be a partner with the Dropout Prevention Center, and we are thrilled to have this pathway that we can help schools with.
Rhonda, this is fantastic. So you're not going to throw away my plan. You're going to help me improve it. You're going to help me get more effective professional development accomplished in my school.
Correct.
system.
Correct. No. Listen, those school improvement plans. Schools work hard on school improvement plans.
Yeah.
We want to help you expand it, but we certainly no, sir. We don't. We don't throw those away.
You're going to help us make it work.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
These results are absolutely phenomenal, and for years being aware of this, the research in this area, to see it actually taken into practice and the process well defined and provided individually for different districts based on what your culture and your schools are and your community and your students and so forth. It's just so great to see that the research to practice idea, which we espouse here at the National Dropout Prevention Center and Columbus University, is really important. And the research is borne out in these facts that you're providing today. This works. Boy, we talked at the beginning, we're going to learn something new here, and I can say there's about 47 things I've learned new today, but it's been an absolute pleasure spending this time with you.
Thank you so much. This is, we hope, the first of many of our visits and work on solutions.
Yes,
we're all about solutions.
Well,
so.
do come back. We love having you
Thank
here.
you so much.
And I guess this is it for us for today,
It
Sandy.
is, Marty. Thank you. And Rhonda, thank you for sharing with us today. And
absolutely.
thank you for Scholastic's partnership with the National Dropout
Absolutely.
Prevention
It's our
Center.
pleasure.
Okay, well, thanks to you both. And it's time for me to say goodbye now, and appreciate your joining us for this very excellent program on Solutions to the Dropout Crisis. We'll see you next time.